This is genuinely insane, as I keep seeing so many people suggest trades involving the Oklahoma City Thunder purely because of the amount of draft picks that they have. A main reason that they keep doing this is because they're like, oh, well, they can't draft so many players, blah, blah, blah. They can't sustain all these draft picks. There's only a certain amount of two-way spots that they can sign second-round draft picks to, and there's only a certain amount of roster spots they can sign people to. And I understand that. However, the way that you get rid of these draft picks is not by just trading them for all these other players like I keep seeing people do. And this latest one, someone suggested a trade that sends Trey Murphy to the Oklahoma City Thunder, who is a good player, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong whatsoever. I love Trey Murphy. I think he's a great player. He's going to have a long, successful career in the NBA, wherever he ends up, as he is a trade candidate this year on the Pelicans. But the packages I just keep seeing involving him to the Thunder, especially this one by Bleacher Report, it just makes zero sense. On today's episode, I'm going to kind of talk about this trade package that was suggested that the Thunder and Pelicans should do and why I think it's an idiotic trade to even suggest, all right? Before we get into all that, though, just quick thing. I want to try to hit 50 likes on this video, all right? Season's about to start up. We have a preseason game tomorrow at the time of recording this video on Sunday, all right? I'm excited to see what the team can do in action. We're excited to see Nikola Topic on the floor with all the other guys. I'm excited to see what second-round draft pick Brooks Barnhizer can do. I'm excited to see how Dub's going to be recovering from this wrist injury if he does play. I'm excited to see if Chet can take this leap, and I'm excited to see if Hartenstein starts to put up some more threes as well and knock some down. So just go ahead, leave a like on this video, hit that subscribe button if you aren't subscribed already, and let's go ahead, get into talking about this just horrible trade package that I saw, all right? And it's from Bleacher Report, and we know the history Bleacher Report has with trade packages, especially involving the Thunder, because of the amount of draft picks that they have, okay? It's not a good one. I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to warn you guys right quick, all right? This is a pretty bad trade. If you don't want to see it, all right, close your eyes. You can listen to it, but if you see it, you guys might want to throw up, all right? This is the trade package. Oklahoma City receives Trey Murphy III. He's a good player, like I said, all right? I don't have any qualms or quarrels with Trey Murphy III. I love his game. I absolutely do, all right? Great 3-and-D player. But Cason Wallace, Isaiah Joe, Ousmane Dieng, a 2026 first-round draft pick, top 4 protected via Philly, which I think you don't involve that trade whatsoever in a package this season, and a 2030 first-round draft pick, okay? Absolutely horrible trade idea. The only two good parts about this trade is you're sending off Ousmane Dieng, who I just don't think has a future in OKC anymore because of the fact that this team is just getting so good now. And then the 2030 first-round draft pick, as that shouldn't be a good pick either, okay? Those are the only good parts about this trade that I kind of like. The rest of it, I'm like, why? All right? The only one that I can also kind of see would be Isaiah Joe, as I think Trey Murphy III is an upgrade from Isaiah Joe. He's a much better defender. Isaiah Joe is a better three-point shooter, but I think all around offensively and defensively, Trey Murphy III is a better player than Joe, okay? But even then, I'm kind of hesitant still because Joe is a good spark plug off the bench, especially when you need a three-point shooter coming in there for a few quick and easy buckets there. Let's say you need 2 or 3 three-pointers real quick. Boom, Joe can give you that catch and shoot. So it's just, I just don't like it. And then also the Cason Wallace thing. I don't want to trade Cason Wallace whatsoever for a few reasons, okay? But let's go ahead and get into like this article itself talking about it, all right? Let's see the reasoning why for this trade. As previously mentioned, and this is not the first time Thunder trade was mentioned on this list. This was the second time they talked about Nikola Topic, which I'm not even going to talk about that trade as it was also a pretty bad one. As previously mentioned, the Thunder have no obvious reason to tinker with their title-winning roster. First off, if they don't have a reason to tinker with it, why keep suggesting that they should tinker with it? In this exercise, though, they have no other choice. Their trade assets are among the league's very best and probably have more roster pieces than they can put to use. Consolidating them for a difference maker could be in the cards then. They'd have to jump through some financial hoops long-term to keep their core together, but that seems bound to happen even if they don't make a deal. First off, Zach Buckley, all right? Please learn how the apron works and the CBA and all the contracts work, okay? People keep on looking at the dollar amount when talking about contracts, talking about the second apron. You look at the percentage amount. You look at the percentage. Sure, $20 million might sound like a lot of money. That's like 10% of the salary cap right now. That's not that much. That's why people think Alex Caruso is an overpay for his contract. It's only about 10% of the cap, and it's going to eventually decrease to his final year of this extension to, I think, 6% of the cap. It's not as much as people like to think. The salary cap's also going to continuously increase because of TV deals and bargaining. Plus, the Thunder can avoid the second apron penalties as well, because by the time they would have to worry about the tax implications and, the downsides of, being in the second apron, there's going to be a new CBA where all these penalties of the second apron could even be gone. So you don't really have to worry about financial problems with the Oklahoma City Thunder, because they have thought this out and planned it, because the contracts don't work by the dollar amount, they work by the percentages, which is a big thing to keep in mind when you talk about anything when it comes to contracts and the second apron and salary cap in the NBA, especially regarding the Oklahoma City Thunder. Just go ahead and take a look at more parts of this article as well. Just have two more things to talk about with this. This trade would just help ensure the good times are as good as they can be before the inevitable cap crunch. Once again, the cap crunch, second apron, everyone keeps talking about it. They're just hoping that the Thunder will collapse, even though they aren't going to collapse because of all these draft picks. Murphy's 4-year, $112 million deal would make the future even trickier to navigate, but he'd be a hand-in-glove fit on the court, and if any franchise can afford to prioritize the present, it's probably the one that just spent a not insignificant chunk of the offseason in a champagne-soaked state of celebration. So, once again, second apron, the cap, not worried about it because it works in percentages, not by the dollar amount. So please, 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 especially for a reporter like a company like Bleacher Report, you should know how the cap works in the second apron and the penalties, especially when there's a new CBA being discussed in 2 seasons. All right. Final part of this article, Murphy is a 6'8" swingman who is overqualified for the 3-and-D duties he'd likely handle in the Sooner State. He downshifted his game a bit to fit, but that could make him all the more efficient off the ball on offense and on all the more disruptive on defense. As for the Pelicans, they could see ahead of the snake potential in Wallace, who might one day form a brilliant offense-defense combo with this summer's number 8 pick, Jeremiah Fears. Gaining 2 first-round picks would have obvious perks for a non-contender, while Joe, 26, and Jang, 22, are young enough to fit a rebuilding effort should New Orleans opt to head that route. I understand the reasoning for why New Orleans would want to make this trade. I don't get the reasoning for why Oklahoma City would even pick up the phone on this trade. That's my problem with it. Cason Wallace is one of those guys where I'm not trading whatsoever this season. I don't care. All right. Because you have some stuff to figure out with Lou Dort and Isaiah Hartenstein this upcoming offseason. Do you want to try to keep Isaiah Hartenstein, which I don't think is going to be easy to do whatsoever? I think I give the Thunder a 10% chance to keep Isaiah Hartenstein. Just being honest about it, when you look at the contract and fit and everything else going into it, my whole thing is, why would you draft Thomas Horber, who has a very similar play style to Isaiah Hartenstein, who is also younger and going to be cheaper, if you plan on keeping Hartenstein? That's where I don't really get it, especially extending J. Will to the contract that he had as well. That's where I don't really get, the people that say, Thunder are keeping Hartenstein, but it would be great to keep him. I'm not saying ship him off. He's done. I'm saying I just don't think it's likely that they can, because of the fact that he can make $30 million with so many other teams that could be contenders. Okay. And then also Lou Dort. I think no matter what, you try to keep Lou Dort. All right. But let's say you can't. Let's say you can't keep Lou Dort and you prioritize keeping Isaiah Hartenstein. If you trade away Cason Wallace, who's that Lou Dort replacement? You don't have one then. You don't. You are then relying on a second-round pick in Brooks Barnhizer to be that replacement. That's what you're doing. Okay, so I think Cason Wallace is one of the most important pieces to keep this season, because of the fact you need to figure out what you're doing with the contract situations with Lou Dort and Isaiah Hartenstein, who you're prioritizing trying to keep. And I think just fact of the matter is, with how long he's been here, and he's one of the players that you think of first when you think of the Oklahoma City Thunder, because he was here during the rebuild as well, and he's been a Thunder for life, it's Lou Dort. I think you're keeping Lou Dort 10 out of 10 times over Isaiah Hartenstein because of what he means to this team and to the city. All right. So that's the thing. You need to try to figure out what you're doing this offseason with Lou Dort and Isaiah Hartenstein before you ship off a guy like Cason Wallace, because let's say, like I said, if you can't keep Dort, Cason Wallace is that replacement to him, who is going to be on a pretty cheap deal, who shouldn't be making over $20 million a year, which, like I mentioned, is around 10% of the cap right now. And eventually that's going to be even less, down in the single percentage amounts. All right. So all I got for this video. Let me know what you guys personally do think about this trade, though, as I do generally think this is one of the most insane and ridiculous trade ideas I have ever seen someone try to make for a, reigning champion. All right. That's all I got. See you guys in the next one.